Welcome to Sharing Hope. I'm your host, Jamie George, and our guest is Mr. Jon Acuff. Jon is the New York Times bestselling author of 6 books, including his most recent Wall Street Journal #1 bestseller, Finish, Give Yourself the Gift of Done. He's written a mess of books, and Seth Godin, one of my favorites, a fellow Buffalo guy, by the way. This is a pretty amazing endorsement. After Seth read Jon's book, Do Over, he said, "This is the best career book ever written, and I can't think of the second." That's not bad. Over 20 years, Jon's been helping some of the biggest brands, and he is an insightful and funny guy. What a privilege to have you with us. Welcome, Jon Acuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jamie. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. Good to see you. Nice to catch up. How are you, surviving or thriving?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm like a lot of people. I'm figuring it out. I'm telling people I'm looking like 90 days ahead. Like, what do I want to be true in 90 days? So what's something I want to add? Another question that's helped me is, what would have made this easier? And then when I figure that out, I go build it. So like, for instance, having a robust YouTube channel would have made this easier for me. Another revenue stream, another way to communicate with people, another way to serve people. Okay, I'm not going to beat myself up that I don't have that, but what I am going to do is start to work on that and build that into the future. So for me, like figuring out a couple things like that has been super helpful.
So as an author, do you have moments where you're like, I think I need to go back and read that one book I wrote?
Yeah, well, for me,
do you have moments like that?
I have moments where I started seeing people post Do Over about handling change. Because like Do Over, the NFL Players Association teaches it to players. Because if you're in the NFL, you're there for a minute and then you're gone. And so I started to see people post and I was like, oh, that's right. I need to go sharpen some skills. Like I've been telling people there's 3 types of skills for right now. Critical. And I'll say, what's your takeout sign? For a restaurant, their #1 critical skill was print a sign that said, we do takeout. First skill. For a church, we have online tithing. We have an online service. So as an average person, what's your critical skill? What's a new skill? What's something I'm going to add? And then what's a classic skill? What's something that, because life got really busy, you walked away from it, but now that you're paused, you're going to pick it back up and go, oh, this is classic. Calling people on the phone is a classic skill. People will answer your call now that wouldn't have 4 months ago. Because we're so starved for interaction. And so calling people on the phone to encourage them is a classic skill. So I try to put frameworks and ideas around it, because otherwise this season feels so mushy and upside down to me that I really want to say, what can I do? What are the things I can grow? And I'm going to feel the feelings. Like I have a friend, Chip Dodd, who says that, like, my wife and I got into an argument because she was saying our neighborhood pool might be closed this summer and it wasn't going to be fun. And I said, no, it'll be a different kind of fun. And she was like, stop. I get to say our neighborhood pool being closed isn't fun. And she was right. I was trying to rush her right by that feeling. And you don't set somebody up for a great marriage or life or happiness if you don't let them feel the sad feeling, the frustrated feeling, the angry feeling. And so I think it feels like this potpourri of everything right now.
Does that come easy for you personally, feeling through the feelings, or does that work?
No, it takes work. It takes being deliberate. So for me, like I had a counselor tell me we have feelings about feelings. So he said, for instance, Jon, when you feel angry, you feel guilty because you didn't learn that it was okay to feel angry. So like when I feel angry, I then feel guilty that I shouldn't feel angry because good people don't feel angry. And then that makes me feel angrier. And then I feel guiltier. And then like it becomes this circle.
And you're in the loop.
And then I'm in the loop. So no, I have to work to go, okay, it's okay for this day to feel this way. I don't have to stay there. The feeling doesn't get to determine my actions. I'm going to talk to friends. I'm going to do the things that help me, but I'm not going to rush right beyond the feeling and act like I don't have it, because it's okay to have that feeling.
Yeah. So I think with authors, sometimes I think people are like, authors, hey, this is great, right? Don't they like, going away in a cabin somewhere? Don't they like, getting stuck on a desert island? Quarantine should be the greatest thing in the world, right? You're just going to pump out a couple more books.
Yeah.
How does that work with you?
I'd love to meet those authors. They sound so amazing. Like, I bet they have a falcon. Like, they have a falcon they catch on their arm, and his name is Frederick, and they release him, and he catches them rabbits for dinner.
Yeah. And a volleyball named Wilson. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and they have a beard, whatever. I mean, no, I think it's, for a lot of people, it's the same in that, like, a lot of my job is public speaking, and there's not public speaking happening right now. So in the one sense, I do have more space, but in the other sense, I have to go, okay, well, how do I pivot what I'm doing to make sure that I'm providing for my family? So yeah, I don't, the myth of, here's the joke I always do. Like for my first book, I got $30,000. I got a $30,000 advance, which was amazing. I would have written that book for $3. And people would come up to me and go, man, you going to quit your job? You gonna go to Mexico and retire? And I had to say, no, after agent, after taxes, I got 13 grand. If I won a $13,000 lottery, Jamie, and you were like, John, my buddy Paul Farmer told me you just hit the lottery, 13 grand. You out of here? I'd be like, Jamie, no. You live on 13 grand. That's terrible. So no, I'm like everybody else. I'm figuring it out in different ways. I mean, the people I feel the most for are musicians. You and I have a million musician friends that 15 years ago were told, we're not buying music anymore. You have to learn how to do touring to make money. And they pivoted their whole industry and they worked really hard. And now touring's not happening. And a lot of them haven't built up additional things because they haven't needed to. They've been focused and dedicated to touring. It's not that they made a mistake, but it's like that big pillar of their life just got knocked out. So I feel grateful that because of the nature of my industry, I've done public speaking, I've done consulting with clients, I've done speeches, I've done coaching, I've sold books. I have a lot of different, my stool has a lot of different legs. And I feel very fortunate for that.
I know. So many of my interviews have been with our friends, and some of them who, many of them have been successful, and so they're kind of on the backside of their careers, and so they've got some stuff put away. But gosh, you're right. So many who are right in that mid tier, like things are just starting to, they're just starting to catch, or and
they're doing the right things. Like it's not that they're buying Lamborghinis. It's not that you can be like, you shouldn't have bought the cigarette boat.
No, right. And a lot of it is it's their team. It's management and their crew. And I mean, I'm listening to some of these guys going, I got crew members I've been with for 10 years and I can't pay them,
Yeah. And that's like family. That's family to them. I mean, it's, and the other thing is if you're a roadie, if you specialize in lighting systems for arenas, it's not like you can do that at home as a side hustle. Like you can't even really teach that as a class. Cause that's like one of the pivots is you take your expertise, you teach it as a class. But right now in this season, like try to do a Facebook ad about here's how to do arena lighting systems and see like what the click through is on that. Like it's not going to be well. So like there's a lot of challenges, especially in Nashville right now.
Do you feel like there's a tipping point for people? Because you're right. And so many of my friends, some of what you're doing, some of what I'm doing, everybody's pivoting and going, okay, here's my mastery. I'll distribute it differently. Is there a tipping point where it's just the world is awash in it and people are just tired of it? Or do you think there's always a space where people want to grow, want to change, want to be educated? And so those who have a mastery will have a place to give it away or sell it?
I mean, I think that I would answer it both. Like I would say yes, but also no. So yes, I think that there's a lot of people in the marketplace, more than there ever was before. If I wanted to teach a class on how to write a book, like Masterclass is a really good program. And if you've got, I don't know, like James Patterson, who 1 year, 1 out of every 12 books that were sold was a James Patterson book. So like there's so many people in this space. But at the same time, I tell people all the time, like, take a business book that sold really well and it sold 1 million copies. It sold 1 million copies out of 285 million adults in America. So 1 out of 285 people in a room read that book. You have access to 284 million other adults. So I think you have to keep that perspective because otherwise, like when I would write a book at the library, it was impossible because I was surrounded by books nobody was reading. It's just you at 10 a.m., a dude in his sweatpants and like an Alf shirt poking through something that somebody tried their best on. And now it's in this empty, like Raiders of the Lost Ark warehouse is what it feels like. But you can't look at it that way. You have to say, okay, I have a story. I can find a market. I can find a need. I have to put my unique voice on it. And then I can find a niche. So I think there's always, even though there's many, many examples of the things we're all trying to do, I think there's always a chance for a new one to enter the space.
Man, that's encouraging. So I've been asking folks on the interviews, we're all feeling this weight of uncertainty. You and I are talking about things related to our jobs. I mean, the fall 2021, what in the world's going to happen? Can you go back to a time in your story where you felt maybe a similar kind of a weight, just a heaviness, the uncertainty was similar, at least in your experience. And what did you do? How did you get through it, and how are you different because of it?
Yeah, so there's a couple that come to mind. One, about a month after I got married, I lost my job because they pulled the financing from our startup. And so I'm newly married, don't have a job. You're starting life together. It kind of starts you on this uneven ground. It felt awkward. That was one. That one wasn't as challenging though, because I didn't have kids. So that wasn't, at the time I felt this is the biggest challenge. Now I look back on it and go, you didn't own a house. You didn't have that many bills. So I think another one was 2008. I worked 2008, 2009. I worked for Auto Trader, and their largest kind of revenue stream are dealers placing ads on their search funnel. So in 2009, when everything crashed, dealerships, cars weren't being sold. The brands almost went out of business. So you would go in and not know if you'd be laid off that day because a lot of companies were doing layoffs. So that felt as uncertain, because you would go in and sometimes different companies would just get rid of an entire row of people. And it was, and they had to. This is not a criticism of the companies that had to do that. That felt really uncertain. And so for me, learning to go day by day, some of the cliches are true, and that's why they're cliches. Day by day is a true thing. There's some that are I hate when people say, sometimes you got to jump and grow wings on the way down. And you're that's never how gravity works. No one, as they fall, grows wings. That's a really dumb life plan. I think that leads to dumb decisions.
Right.
So I think a lot of motivational stuff is really dumb, but day by day and going, okay, here's where I am today. Here's how I control it. And then just admitting, the truth is, Jamie, I didn't have a ton of control over this fall before the pandemic. I really didn't. If we did an interview and you said, John, tell me the 10 things that are going to happen in October. And I'd be like, well, Jamie, it's funny you ask because I've got them all figured out. I had the illusion of it. Yeah. I had maybe a greater sense of confidence about it. But remembering that, okay, I didn't have to control that before. I didn't have control over it before. I can do today, and I can do it piece by piece by piece. And then one of the things that helped me get through it was being kinder to myself. I think being kind to yourself is a superpower, and it's not a sexy one because we all want to be tougher and you can do it, but not beating yourself up. If all of us burned calories for how often we beat ourselves up, we'd all have 6-pack abs. So for me, going saying, you know what, I'm really feeling stressed, or I don't feel like I'm being as productive as I could be during this global pandemic. That's a crazy person sentence. It's a global pandemic.
Yes.
How are we having productivity standards during a global pandemic? And so I've been trying to help parents, for instance, that'll say, John, I'm not good at homeschooling. And I'll go, well, have you ever done it before? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then you should suck at it. You should be terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're probably terrible at hang gliding. You've never done that either, but you wouldn't assume I'm amazing at hang gliding. So now you're trying to learn something brand new in the middle of a global pandemic, when you might be losing your job, when you're all living in the same space, where you can't go to your favorite restaurant. Your favorite restaurant might never exist. We don't know how long it's going to go on. And then you go, why am I having a hard time learning this completely new thing? Why am I having a hard time teaching my high school Algebra 2? Because it should be hard. So I think what's helped me is conversations like this, where you get to encourage each other, when you get to talk. For me, writing, for me, walking. I just went on a long walk with a friend. We were spaced out. I feel it just sounds like we were physically spaced out. We weren't spaced out. Sounds like we went on a hippie walk. Don't worry about it. We took our shoes off and just felt the earth, just the energy of the soil.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So I think little things like that are super helpful.
Yeah, I've gone on more walks in the last 4 weeks than I have in the last 4 years. No question.
I've waved more than I ever have before. I'm constantly waving at people, and I'm so excited about it. I do this on Zoom, hey, hey.
What's your go-to interaction now physically when you walk up? Is it the elbow, the fist pump, the wave?
Elbow. I would say it's the wave. Occasionally the elbow, but you're still getting close to the my elbow's 6 feet long. So I still think it's the wave, or sometimes I'll be hey, a little bit of peace sign, hey, I'm cool. Hey. But the wave, but it's funny. I've been telling people, crisis magnifies kindness. An old man, when I was on a trail run, gave me a double thumbs up, and that made my day. I told my wife about it. I was like, it was amazing. 3 months ago, I would have been what's that old dude? Stop giving me thumbs up. Now, though, because we're all so lacking of interaction, the littlest thing is oh, that's really special.
Meaningful.
Yeah, it's meaningful.
I want to go back to the self-compassion you were talking about, because I think you got your finger right on it. The clients I deal with, almost every one of them, this becomes a starting place. the self-judgment, it just comes up all the time.
Mhm.
And what did you do? What were some of the processes to apply that self-compassion, that acceptance that goes, yeah, it should be hard. It's okay. Were there practices or were there processes that helped you get in a new, because it really is a new neural pathway, right? Like
Yeah.
the synapses fire different when you actually begin to believe that. What was happening for you?
Well, so for me, it is a practice. It's not automatic. Like if it took you 10 years, I tell this to people all the time when they're like, I want to lose weight. If it took you 10 years to put on the weight, why are you being so mean to yourself and giving yourself 10 days to take it off?
Mhm.
Like, what if you that's really unfair. That's just really unkind. And so for me, it is a practice. It's not a single event. And then I figured it out. And then the way I say it is, sometimes we try to hold our breath when it comes to self-compassion. We think about it once and then we try to hold our breath all week. And I'm a big believer in find 50 snorkels. Like a snorkel can be a phone call with a friend that cares about you. It can be listening to your favorite playlist. It can be writing a note. Like this note says light and easy. So when I wrote my last book, I said, this process is going to be light and easy. I'm not going to beat myself up through it. The process is going to be, even though it's a challenging process, it's going to be light and easy. I looked at that note over and over. This note right here says, I love writing this book. I love writing this book because I forget. We forget the true things. And so
I needed both of those notes for all three of my last books.
Yeah. So like my first books, I was a huge jerk to myself. It was a challenging process. And so this is from November 6th, 2019. I wrote, I love writing this book because what happens is I forget. And so there's this 10-minute of fear in the way between me and writing the book. And if I can get through that 10-minute, I remember, oh, that's right. I love doing this. Like I feel at home doing this, but I got to get through that first 10 minutes. So the note reminds me like, no, remember, you love doing this. You love doing this. Once I settle into that love and once I push through that, I feel a lot better. So I probably do 100 things. Like fear, like I stack the odds. Fear doesn't fight fair. So like fear comes with 1,000 weapons. I'm coming with 1,001. I want it to be like Neo coming into the Matrix and there's a wall of weapons and I've got my entire arsenal and I can do a million things against that versus I learn one thing and then hope that carries me through. The problem is some days the phone call with the friend's not going to be available. Some days, walking your dog, you're going to be at work, you're going to be out of town, whatever. Some days the song's going to seem dumb. Some days watching the clip of the person succeed on The Voice is going to seem silly. I want to make sure I have enough things that I can pull for the right day so that I'm always ready.
And do you literally keep those? I mean, this may sound like a strange question, but do you keep those in a folder? Do you keep those are they literally like tools in a belt? Or are they just somewhere in the back of your mind that you know you have them there?
Yeah, so like there's all these notes right in front of me. I have a coin that I often have in my pocket because it reminds me that I can flip my circumstances. So it's from 1922, and I love having something firm and something real. Most of my work is not tangible. It's just moving ideas around.
Gosh,
so
good.
I like being reminded that there was a 1922. Like I'm 100 years past that. Time is going to pass. And so, yeah, part of it is I just wrote a book about overthinking. My last book that'll come out next April is about overthinking. So I feel like I spent 2 years learning how to change the way I think. And then all of a sudden I needed it more than ever before because of this season. So it feels like I spent 2 years learning how to swim and then the world got covered with water. So there are moments of stress, but I have a lot more tools because I just spent 2 years with a PhD researching how do you figure out how to think? What does that look like? How do you change that? So that's why I have all these different things that I have access. I mean, like if you look on my wall, like there's a big, that's a big note sheet with ideas written down on it. So when I have a new idea, I'm capturing it. So yeah, it's by no means a perfect system. I'm not super detailed that way, but it's enough that I'd rather over collect and I'd rather have more access than I think I need than try to kind of grit my way through it. I'm in my mid 40s. I got enough life that tells me gritting my way through it isn't going to end with a happy me or a happy wife or a happy family.
Yeah. So well said. Would it be safe to say if we are collecting experiences, can we begin to look at this time during the quarantine and go, hey, for a bunch of us, this is a new arrow in the quiver. Like we will have gone through a thing and learned something about life. Are we in the middle of it where you're like, we're too close to it, I don't think we can see it yet? Or is it time to start going, here's what I'm learning. Actually, there's some value that I can begin to take away now.
I know. I mean, I think he's a mutual friend of ours, Mike Foster. I asked him a question like that. I'll tell you what he said because I thought it was so smart. He said, John, there's two things to do during a quarantine or a pandemic. Number one, take notes. He said, take notes. You're going to learn things about yourself you didn't know that you wouldn't have learned willingly. And so, for me going, wow, a lot of my work got reduced, but I feel the same level of stress. I think I'm bringing the stress to the work, not the work to me. Like I'm bringing the chaos to the week. The week isn't bringing the chaos to me. I need to sit with that. I might not have the answer to that yet, but I can take a note and go, all right, that's something to think about. Like, I think of my head like a rock tumbler. I'm putting ideas in there and they're tumbling around. And then eventually I'm going to go, oh, that's what that was about. So yes, I 100% agree. I think it was Henry Nouwen who said sometimes, we want to paint the shipwreck when we're still in the middle of it. Like we think we're on the shore and we're not yet. So I don't want to do that. We've all had friends and we've personally gone through crises where it's so tempting to act like you're past the crisis. And on the outside to the friend, you can be like, oh, homie, you're in like stage 1 of 100. I'm not going to say that. That's depressing. But you're talking like you're some wise old man with a corn pop pipe. Yeah. Like, dude, you're very much in the middle. So the first thing Mike said was take notes. The second thing he said is don't make any huge life decisions. And I love that. In the same way that the people you work with that are in crisis, when they go, okay, I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to change my job. And you're like, whoa. Like figuring out a divorce is enough for now. Like keep your job, keep the stability. This isn't the time to do huge life decisions because we've all got kind of crisis thinking right now. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a reality.
Yes.
So let's keep some things stable and let's take some notes.
Man, that's so good. I so appreciate that. There's multiple things right now that I'm thinking through. I'm parking in my mind, like when I'm done with John, I need to make sure I take a note of that. Is there one book in particular? Because so much of what you've written is so practical for people. Is there one book right now of all the ones you've written you'd say this is probably most relevant to where a lot of people they can read all of them? But is there one that stands out that you go, yeah, this one right now is probably most relevant to what people are going through in general?
Yeah, I think do-over is, especially if you've gone through a career transition. If you're looking at it and going, wait a second, I've either lost my job, I'm about to lose my job, somebody I know lost my job. It's just a really practical way to say, okay, here's how I recognize the skills I have. That's part of the problem is like you go through this job transition and you think you have no skills that are worth moving forward with, and you have way more skills. Or you go, I lost my job and I don't know anybody. You do. You know a ton of people. You just don't know an exercise to engage in that and expose all those people to what you're doing right now. So let's do that. So that one, if you've lost your job, and then, or if you're going through a job transition, and then Finish for me, Finish I think really makes sense in this environment because it talks about that perfectionism. And I think in the middle of uncertainty, fear, doubt, and perfectionism come in and really get people stuck. And so that's the one where I'd go, okay, you don't have to be on the edge of like, I'm going to run a marathon, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to do all these things. But you might want to say like, the first chapter of Finish is the day after perfect. And it's the most important day for you to work on something. It's a day after your perfect thing you thought would be perfect isn't perfect.
Ooh.
What do you do with that? And so I think a lot of us are living in the day after perfect. Like I looked at a text message today. I sent it on March 15th to my buddy. And I said, hey, man, I think the first half of this year is going to be pretty challenging. Oh, you sweet summer prince. The first half. Just the first half, Jamie. Yeah. That's what's going to be fun. Well, I sent that because I thought that's what and so like we're living in the day after perfect. How do we make sense of that? How do we lean into that? So yeah, I would say those are the two.
Man, that's so good. And I'm just going back to the beginning of what you said, showing up with self-compassion, taking a day at a time. The anxiety really, it feels overwhelming when we start to just move like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen in October? Like,
oh yeah, well, and if I look too far ahead, I just get automatically stuck. And then like, I have to also like, what am I feeding myself? So I caught myself the other day, I was watching a news program that had a global stock ticker of deaths. Like, how is that helpful to me? Like when I'll tell people, choose, does it feed my fear or my faith? That's not a hard one. Like, let me think. And like, what am I doing with that info? What,
Right.
like, how am I using that on a Tuesday? Like, knowing the exact number of deaths in Malaysia. Like, what is that? All I'm doing is stirring up fear, stirring up more anxiety. So I think we have to be informed, but there's this real thin line between informed and obsessed.
Yes.
So, like, spinning out on it. So, like, doing little things like, I can't bring my phone to bed with me. Because if I bring my phone to bed with me, I'm going through Instagram, I'm going on Netflix, and next thing you know, it's 1 a.m. and I'm not getting good sleep. And then the next day, I'm like, I don't know why I'm so grumpy and stressful. I do, because last night you sabotaged today. So
yes.
you feel silly. You feel like, you're a 12-year-old who has phone restrictions, but like, I have to keep it in the kitchen at night because if it comes into my bedroom, like, game over.
Yeah. No, the truth is we all need phone restrictions. It's
we're all
some
12.
level, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, think about it. Like, there's there are thousands and thousands of engineers right now working on how to make that app more addictive, stickier to you. Like, there's whole teams of people. And then we go, it's so weird. Like, it must be me. Maybe I'm broken that I keep want to play. Right. No, dude, there's scientists that are color coding hues, like specific hues to your eyeball so that you want to look at it. And they're giving you a notification just when they sent you slipping away so that you go back. Like, no, it's not accidental. And so then you go, I'm going to give myself, like, the only way, here's when I really realized this about my phone. We were in Costa Rica. This was last spring break. And we were at this hotel with our family. And there was this like infinity pool. And like, they had, I swear they must have been trained, like macaws that would fly by at sunset, like flapping their red, beautiful wings. Like, it looked like a postcard. And I looked up and 90% of the people were on their phone. And I was like, that's crazy. But then I was realized, no, it's not. Because even though Costa Rica is amazing, it can't beat every form of entertainment, every show ever made, every fascination ever created. The whole thing is there. So Costa Rica, the Costa Rican skyline, looking out at the ocean, was up against the entire history of the world and all the entertainment ever created. It didn't stand a chance.
And couldn't compete.
So if Costa Rica can't compete, my willpower certainly can't. So I got to leave that in the kitchen.
Gosh, so good. All right. Our time's running out. I got to ask you this question. Is there something that mattered before the quarantine, really mattered a lot, that matters suddenly not quite the same?
I would say, so I'm trying to learn YouTube, and it's clunky. Like, and my wife challenged me at the beginning. She was like, I don't think you'll have the humility to work through the clunky parts. Like, and what she meant was, I have 300,000 followers on Twitter. So I have like 5,000 on YouTube. When I post a video on YouTube, it gets 400 views. That feels like, that's humiliating to me, because like, and I'll tell people on Twitter, you're going to love this video.
Look.
And dude, 30 will go watch it. And so she was like, I don't know if you can make it through that valley of just like learning. And so I would say what mattered prior to this was like, I got to look like I got it all together. And that still slips in some, but like, I keep telling people right now, this is the summer of amateur. We're all amateurs because we've all never done a global pandemic. Everyone's an amateur and people are very forgiving. And so it's a great time to learn something new. So for me, feeling like I had to be an expert, I'm trying to find ways where it's like, yeah, dude, I messed that YouTube thing up because I've never done it before and it's clunky and it'll get better, but like, I'll figure it out. Like, like I'll figure out how to do that, or I'll figure out how to learn that. So yeah, the perception that I had to always be an expert is one that I'm kind of like, it's not helpful. I don't get to grow and I get super stuck.
I love that summer of amateur. There's all this grace for everybody.
Oh yeah. Well, dude. And even not only that, high produced things look tone deaf. It's the greatest time to do something new because high produced looks tone deaf.
Yeah.
Like if you go see some production and there's 42 cameras and you like, one, it might be illegal. They might have filmed it illegally.
Right.
Like, two, it feels disconnected. No, we expect you to be on your phone shooting a video. We expect you to be kind of like stumbling through it. The first probably 20 videos I did, I had a script and I read it from the script and occasionally looked at the phone because I was nervous about YouTube. And I was like, I'm a better writer than I am a YouTuber. So I'm going to go back and forth. And now like I've gotten more comfortable and I don't do that. But I gave myself the grace that, yeah, for the first 20, it's going to be a lot of this. And it wasn't even like, it was 2 words. I'd be like, hey, everybody, how's it going? Like you would think it was complicated. It was like, and somebody said on day 20, they're like, dude, how are you still not memorizing your intro? I said the same intro every time for 20 days in a row. And somebody's like, homie, you got to memorize your intro. It was like 2 sentences. And I'd be like, hey, everyone, today is the latest. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
Grace. Yep. There's a lot of grace right now.
Yep. That's what we need.
We need it. We need it for each other. Man, so much there. I'm like, I got to go listen to this back and take a bunch of John's cues. Thank you, brother, for the time.
Dude, I love doing it. Thank you for, you gave me grace. You probably wouldn't have included this. I got the time wrong. I was half an hour late and Jamie gave me grace. I have some friends, their names won't be mentioned. If you're 7 minutes late, they'll be like, that's fine. We can do it in October. Like they reschedule you. Like it's tempting. And they go, yeah, it's fine. I'm very busy. I have a very busy schedule. You gave me grace with this. So I'm appreciative for that. I want to give you credit for that. So thankful.
Thank you, brother. I'm grateful for the time and miss seeing you. Let's catch up soon.
Yeah, when it's not illegal, we'll totally do it.
Not illegal.
Let's wave. Hey.